Chapter 1 Prologue. Darkness enveloped everything, and the entire main god space fell into unprecedented turmoil. Countless reincarnations who could stir up wind and rain in the small world were as small as ants. 9 huge totem poles collapsed, and the rubble crushed the ants underneath. Then, little by little, blood seeped out from the cracks in the stones. Arthur suddenly remembered the myth of a certain world. During the twilight of the gods, the chaotic King Surt would spread his huge black wings to cover the world. In this darkness, everything would be shattered, and the fragments of the world would sink into the eternal silence of chaos. It would not be until the arrival of the new century that they would regain their clean and warm glory. As the earliest reincarnation that has survived to this day, Arthur has enough ability to escape from this disaster, just like what he is doing now. The eternal wheel of the creation-level mage tower is suspended above the darkness, and its light is almost like the texture of gemstones, bright and cold. Countless reincarnations stretched out their hands below, trying to touch this unreachable hope of life, with fanatical hope shining in their eyes. A female reincarnation cried out loudly, "Arthur Melvid, you have such a strong ability. Why don't you save people? Why do you just watch us die?" This question seemed to ignite the crowd, and the crowd angrily denounced it. The raging wave of anger was infinitely amplified in the face of the huge natural disaster. In this way, the crowd vented their panic and despair. Also, after being chosen by the Lord God to become reincarnators, they are already superior to their kind, possessing various powers, and their lives naturally become more valuable existences. Arthur's eyes became colder and colder. He glanced at the crowd below, once again replaced the magic crystal that maintained the operation of the mage tower, and jumped down. The crowd was at a loss for a moment. They didn't know why Arthur gave up the chance to escape. The mage tower could tear apart space, and the creation-level mage tower had superior performance. But at this time, Arthur jumped down resolutely. The space here is oppressed, and flying is just a luxury. Jumping from a high place, even if you are not injured, means completely giving up the chance of escape. After landing, Arthur stood up and scathed and rolled quickly. Before anyone could react, he quickly passed through the collapsed ruins and ran towards the center of the totem pole. His body is wrapped with strands of cyan halo, which is a manifestation of the instinctive use of high-level wind magic. Under his feet, the darkness seemed to be irritated, expanding crazily. Arthur kept walking, holding up a huge piece of gravel with one beautiful hand, and immediately gathered the luminous crystal suspended in the center of the totem pole into his arms. Woohoo, my origin! It's finally safe! The Lord God was crying in his mind, and quickly transferred from Arthur's body to the spar. He sighed with satisfaction. It was better to have his own home. Don't be too happy. It's not over yet. Arthur gritted his teeth and slid out the small wand in his sleeve. A circle of brilliant, holy light temporarily resisted the erosion of darkness, but after a while, it began to crumble. When the Lord God saw this, he suddenly became worried. Arthur, it's no big deal. Arthur acted extremely calm and kept communicating with the mage tower with his mental power. He saw the huge thing slowly lowering its height, with an inverse cross as its base. The 2 interlaced rings sped up, and the entire tower erupted with bright brilliance. Your main god space is already riddled with holes, and a few more holes are nothing. I can't fly up, so I can only let the mage tower come down and leave this space from another direction. The main god indicates a strategy. Which direction does the other direction refer to? Arthur twirled his wand happily, pointing the tip toward the ground. From here, make a hole. Lord God! The huge reverse cross pressed down, like a dark cloud invading the sea. The earth fluctuated violently, huge cracks opened, and countless reincarnations screamed and fell. Arthur could no longer care about all this. The output of light magic reached its maximum, and he was in a stalemate with the surging darkness. The mage tower sank slowly but surely, and the Lord God screamed to encourage him. Just a little short of Arthur. Ouch! On the dark sky, a golden pupil suddenly appeared. The pupil was slender and erect, with a bit of brilliant light like dusk floating in it. The pupils mixed with gold and amber turned in a circle, and then locked on the glowing mage tower. The sharp claws covered with black scales also penetrated and imprinted on the nearly collapsed ground. Arthur, the voice of the Lord God suddenly rose 10 degrees higher. He is coming. He is coming. Arthur, run. He'll eat everything. As soon as this overly huge creature appeared, it caused a panic among the survivors. They looked up at the sky blankly. In the next second, countless rays of light burst out from their bodies. The power given by the Lord God was clearly disintegrating and was sucked into the belly of the huge black dragon. Countless shining ribbons appeared out of thin air between the dark sky and earth. At the end of the ribbons, the culprit who had taken away their power was still not satisfied and looked at the mage tower with a look of unfinished content. Arthur felt that his scalp was about to explode, and his blonde hair was stained with sweat and stuck to his cheeks. This time, he was not so indifferent and almost put on a desperate posture. You dare to touch my mage tower and try it. The Lord God is almost crying, Arthur. Now is not the time to be impulsive. It is important to escape. Of course, escaping is important, but there is always something more important than escaping. The mage tower is like a child he watched grow up. It was not redeemed from the Lord God, but he traveled to various worlds to collect materials himself to build it so beautifully. If it were destroyed here, not sure if he felt his determination. The black dragon shrank his head and decisively turned to the remaining reincarnations, sucking out a huge power that made people go numb like a bottomless pit. Arthur breathed a sigh of relief and began to slowly move the mage tower, carefully sinking it inch by inch. The Lord God shook excitedly, obviously happy that victory was in sight. The black dragon that was eating moved its huge black wings and suddenly raised its head. The sea is as blue as cornflowers, and seabirds are circling low, their beautiful white wings complementing the white waves. However, the most beautiful scenery is not here. Under this calm sea, there is a mysterious country hidden. The owners of this country are the darlings of the sea. They are mermaids with beautiful singing voices. Perhaps people on land have seen them before. On the rocks at low tide, the beautiful creatures swing their gorgeous fishtails and sing beautiful songs to the sunset, making the hearts of sailors on passing ships sway. In short, the world is temporarily safe. Arthur buttoned his shirt one by one, his crystal light purple eyes showing an extreme calmness. If he chases after me, I will think of another way. The Lord God was moved to tears. Little angel Arthur, please accept my loving hug. Hug. Use your fins. Arthur mocked calmly. Through a thin layer of shirt, the mark left on his back was still vaguely revealed. The mark took the form of dragon flames and was tainted with the breath of the black dragon, which greatly increased the possibility of being found. Unfortunately, all the medicines have been tried, and the mark cannot be eliminated. Arthur can only watch the beautiful retirement life go away from him, and a new round of bloodshed is coming. The Lord God was shocked for a while. Then he moved closer to Arthur without changing his mind, swaying his big peacock blue tail and loudly emphasizing, I mean it. Without Arthur, I would have been eaten. There is no scum left. I didn't expect Arthur would come to save me. He's already retired, isn't he? The magician's slender index finger poked the little flying fish's forehead very lightly, making him roll around in the air. You can use this body first. I can't find a more suitable one for the time being. I have some power in this world. Even if that guy appears, I can still struggle for a while. Avoiding the Lord God's particularly sensational question, Arthur put on his cloak and lifted the little flying fish onto his shoulders. I'll show you around, my country. The Mage Tower is parked in a wide trench. It is not as dark and cold as humans imagine. On the contrary, 3 huge mineral veins intersect here: topaz, amethyst, ore, and white crystal. The ores emit unusually bright light. enough to illuminate the entire trench. The lava flows slowly along the ravine line, warming the entire sea area, and more luminous deep sea creatures gather, forming a virtuous light cycle. The Mage Tower is located in the center of this brilliance. Although the outer shell is somewhat damaged, its elegance and majesty are not compromised at all. The two rings are still constantly rotating through putting huge amounts of seawater to replenish its own standby energy. Arthur's identity in this world is that of a sea monster. As soon as he enters the water, his ear fins automatically open. Two pieces on one side stretch out. They're not rounded like a small fan, but sharp and rugged like bone. The seawater gently passes over the ear fins, and the tips of the fins tremble and open comfortably. In this world, I have merged with this sea monster. In exchange, I want to fulfill his wish, which is to avoid the tragedy of the mermaid princess and prevent the kingdom of the sea from being destroyed. Etc. The Lord God sensed something was wrong and looked confused. Why did the tragedy of the mermaid princess lead to the destruction of the sea country? I also think this logic is amazing. Arthur turned his head with the same speechless expression. The mermaid princess fell in love with a human and couldn't get it, and eventually turned into foam on the sea. But what's even more terrifying is that she leaked the news about the kingdom of the sea. So when the Sea King avenged her, it was natural that he met the fully prepared human army. The Lord God couldn't bear to think about what would happen next. After I got here, I realized that what you advised me at that time was correct. This is a complete world, not a fairy tale that is so beautiful that it is almost false. Her blonde hair was floating in the water, with a slightly longer strand tied loosely behind her head. Arthur summoned the killer whales, and several big black and white round guys came over diligently while making sweet chirps. Arthur touched the smooth forehead of the leader and lifted his cloak on the back of the killer whale. The killer whale then swung its tail, smoothly parted the water, and headed for the king of the sea city in the middle of the ocean. Chapter 2, Daughter of the Sea 1. The water gets warmer as you go up, and all the oppressive dark blue recedes, leaving only the lively and light blue, playfully caressing the sun's rays. The sweet calls of killer whales echo in the shallow water. The fish near the coral reef are frightened and run away in all directions. Their colorful scales tumble into a gorgeous kaleidoscope. The Lord God looked at all this in amazement. He was originally just an intelligent program. Although he had a huge amount of information, knowing and feeling were two completely different concepts. He could feel the siren's ear fins gently filtering the seawater, and some soft waves fell on him. The Lord God couldn't help but press closer to Arthur's collar and spit out a string of bubbles. This is the royal city. Arthur tilted his head, and there was a hint of joy in the purple eyes inherited from his mother. He had stayed in this world for decades and was full of affection for this royal city that he had strengthened with his own hands. Arthur believed that if the kingdom of the sea went to war with humans, it would be a joke to destroy the country. The newly developed magic energy cannon could destroy those two-legged creatures in minutes. Because mermaids are warm-blooded animals, the vast coral reef extending from this small island in the middle of the ocean is a more ideal place to live than the cold seabed. The killer whale swam like a strict guard of honor. The mermaids all showed expressions of awe and admiration. Arthur, with a calm expression on his face, floated down from the back of the killer whale and waved his hand to dismiss the group of big guys. Lord Melverde, can you please come here? As soon as Arthur landed, a female mermaid with a flaming redfish tail swam over. She wore a small crown of silver and crystal on her head, indicating her noble status. She looked like she was only 5 or 6 years old as a human being, but she already had a calm demeanor similar to Arthur's. This is the little Princess Ariel, Arthur explained softly to the Lord God, with a gentle look on his face. She is a good child, studious and diligent. Maybe in the near future, I can safely entrust this country to her. The main god's jaw dropped. Then she is the one. Arthur opened his arms, and the little princess immediately threw herself into his arms. Her serious and pretty face finally showed a bit of the coquettishness of a child. Lord Melvid, it's too difficult to conquer the magic pattern. I can't use it to enchant the magic cannon. It's normal to find it difficult. After all, it is a 5th level magic pattern that is simplified from the extreme magic pattern. I couldn't complete it at Ariel's age. Arthur picked up the little princess, who skillfully held his neck and acted coquettishly, wagging her tail. But I think it must be, because I can't calm down. The little princess said plausibly, "It must be like this. Yesterday, my grandmother tore off my magic pattern again, and I spent a lot of effort to glue it back on. Every day, I only have to string pearls with my sisters. But what's the use?" There were intense emotions flashing in the mermaid's fiery red eyes. "Humanity has already gone ahead of us," Lord Melvid said. "It's very dangerous. This is very dangerous. If the mermaid clan doesn't change, one day they will be reduced to goods being trafficked." Arthur looked at the little princess intently for a while, then touched the top of her head with pity. "Ariel, did you have that prophetic dream again?" Yes, the little princess lowered her head and grabbed Arthur's sleeves with her fingers convulsively. "I would actually do such a treasonous act. Ariel," Arthur interrupted her, his light purple eyes full of tolerance and comfort. "That's just a dream. Even if it's not a dream, it's an impossible future. I won't let it happen, and neither will Ariel, right?" There was a bright halo in her bright blonde hair. Ariel moved her lips and suddenly remembered the words she heard in her dream last night. "Whenever I see the sea covered with gold foil in the sun, I will think of his blonde hair." Suddenly, the little princess heard the sound of extremely beautiful emotions blooming. She held her breath and listened word by word as Siren's graceful voice outlined the words of love and care. "Neptune and Grandma, I will go and ask Ariel to stay at my place for a few days so that I can examine your recent homework." "Yes, Lord Melverde," the little princess murmured in response. Maybe she didn't even know what she was talking about. She just stared at the beautiful features of the siren for a long time, feeling some uncontrollable excitement and joy in her heart. However, thinking of the siren's appearance that remained unchanged for decades, this joy turned into a touch of bitterness. Mermaids only have a lifespan of 300 years. Although it is longer than humans, it is far less than the thousands of years of life of the sea monster. That race is rare in number, but God is fair and gave them powerful magic at the beginning of creation. They are the guardians of the kingdom of the sea, and the authority of the royal magicians is passed down from generation to generation. Ariel, Sea King sat on the high throne and frowned displeased. His expression was serious and rigid. The little princess looked at the golden crown on his head and suddenly became afraid. Will she become the master of the sea, like her father in the future? He refuses all changes and only wants to live a stable life. He is also extremely disdainful of human beings, but he does not know that the mermaid clan that has stayed in its own way has long been surpassed. "Yes, Father, I want to study with Lord Melverde for a while." Ariel tried to keep her voice steady. She knew that those lavender eyes had been watching her, and the little princess did not want to disappoint Arthur. "Ariel, it was the old grandmother who spoke this time." She raised her voice, and the gray fishtail studded with 7 oysters shook unhappily, obviously very dissatisfied. "Why can't you just string pearls or plant flowers in your room quietly like your sisters? The cold and dark seabed is not suitable for a little mermaid like you to live." "But," Ariel retorted eagerly, "our ancestors lived in the cold and dark deep sea. They had strong tails and were able to fight killer whales. Today's mermaids are too fragile." "Ariel," the old grandmother was really angry this time. She hit the ground heavily with her cane. "Who told you these things?" "It's me." Seeing that the little princess couldn't stand it anymore, today's persecution was enough. The siren stepped forward calmly, with short golden hair floating in the sea, and a few longer strands at the back of her head wrapped around the side of her neck. "I don't think this is the shameful history of the mermaid clan. On the contrary, Shouldn't we be proud of having such heroic ancestors? Arthur paused, and the graceful voice belonging to the siren sounded again. I teach all Ariel's courses. She will be the disciple who inherits my mantle and brings supreme glory to the kingdom of the sea. He spoke with great certainty, as if stating a prophecy. There was a flash of displeasure on the old grandmother's face, but Neptune waved his scepter lightly to stop her. Compared to his grandmother, he obviously knows Arthur's power better than his grandmother, which is enough to protect the entire mermaid family. Yes, the mermaid clan is proud of this. Neptune expressed his attitude in a gentle tone. Ariel is lucky to be favored by you. As long as she is willing, she can go to the deep sea or learn magic. It is absolutely fine, but the next step is to build the royal city. Please rest assured, Your Majesty, I will do my best. Knowing that a slap in the face means giving a sweet date, Arthur bowed gracefully, stood up, and let the little princess hold his sleeve. The little princess's eyes were bright and full of admiration. There is nothing in this world that Lord Melvin cannot do, and the little princess has always believed in it. This belief lasted until a few years later, when she ascended the throne of Neptune. It continued until she could no longer find the person she longed for in this world, and it continued uninterrupted. The little princess happily followed Arthur back to the deep sea. She was free here. The siren followed a free-range policy. As long as her homework was not delayed, she could play as she pleased. Her favorite magic item can turn a fish tail into human legs. With this, she can explore up and down the mage tower that is isolated from the seawater. The Lord God is forced to take on the heavy responsibility of taking care of the child, with a look of despair on his face. I knew it. I knew there had to be a price to pay. CAC. Now I am taking care of my children before I was calculating data, and what else will I do after that? Clean up tower number 6 and remove the curtains. Arthur stared at the color changes in the amethyst vessel and recorded it casually. He could also be distracted from assigning more tasks to the Lord God. Also, remember to put bath water in Ariel later. The new clothes are in the cabinet. Lord God, did you create me as just a little flying fish? No matter how much I cry, I still have to do the work that needs to be done. I put the warm bath water in, prepared the clothes, and went to remove the curtains without complaint. Thanks to Arthur for giving him this body. Although the Lord God thinks this is a long-planned labor squeeze, it is really great to have magic available QVQ. Halfway through washing the curtains, Arthur came out of the room and was tying the belt of his cloak. The Lord God raised his head from the basin, a little confused. Arthur, where are you going? Go to the sea and ask you to take care of Ariel for a while. Arthur said calmly, and finally couldn't help but show a slightly annoyed look. I have made the entire sea area a devil's restricted area, but there are still people who want to break in. The loud cry of the killer whale came, seemingly urging him from a distance. Arthur stopped talking, and there was a hint of coldness in his lavender eyes. It looks like another chapter in the bloody legend is about to be added. This is the Devil's Forbidden Zone, which is what sailors call this area. Even warships with huge tonnage must take a detour here. The seawater here appears an unstructured dark blue because the landform of the seabed suddenly sinks to the bottom here. The deep trench is like the mouth of hell trying to swallow something, and it is like the pupil of the abyss staring at the world with cold eyes. Captain, we can't go any further. The elderly sailor tremblingly held the side of the ship, his eyes filled with fear. Looking at the dark sea, he seemed to recall the fleet that sank here, more than 200 people. He is the only one who survives. This time, he originally thought that the other party was just out of curiosity and would turn around and return after wandering around the edge. So he gritted his teeth and accepted it. Who knew that the captain with a scar on his face actually ignored it and sailed straight into the depths of the Devil's Forbidden Zone. Crazy. The captain is crazy. Everyone on the ship will die. The captain waved his hand coldly, and the two strong sailors pushed the old sailor to the ground, showing a ferocious smile in his disbelieving eyes. Take him down and lock him up, and then we'll get down to business. Business? The old sailor was trembling and confused. Fortunately, these sailors disguised as desperados had to return to the voyage and did not intend to kill him now, but in the end, he would definitely be silenced. The old sailor was taken down, and the captain looked at the dark sea. At this time, the sky was getting dark, and gray mist filled the sea. No birds could be heard in the entire sea, and even the sound of water waves was very slight. The world seemed to have fallen into an eternal silence, which made people fear for no reason. Damn it, this damn place. He cursed fiercely and motioned to his men to bring the things up. The heavy iron box was carried to the deck. The captain went over to open the big lock on the box and looked inside the box. The man, whose hands were stained with blood, couldn't help but twitch his cheek muscles. His Royal Highness is really cruel and ruthless. What was placed in the box was not goods, but a boy of 12 or 13 years old, who was firmly tied with ropes. His mysterious dark black hair was a bit messy, and he had a handsome face that did not belong to the civilian class at first glance. The captain didn't know who he was. Anyway, he just needed to complete the task. He locked the box securely again and stood up. Throw it away. Chapter 3: The Daughter of the Sea. 2. Two strong sailors worked together to lift the iron box, walked to the side of the ship, and threw it into the sea with all their strength. There was a sound of water, but it soon dissipated, and a more suspicious silence spread. The captain suddenly felt an unprecedented fear. He took out a cigarette from his pocket with shaking hands, lit it, and took 2 puffs. The fog became thicker, and the visibility was less than 5 meters. The captain finished smoking a cigarette and quickly ordered his men to turn around and return. However, he heard the sound of rushing water suddenly coming from deep in the fog. A green light flashed and floated slowly from the mist, and the behemoth gradually revealed its full appearance. The half-ruined mast was still standing tenaciously, and the tattered flag belonged to the powerful empire of the previous era, and the shadow of the invincibility of that year was vaguely visible. The ghost ship is like a huge sea beast coming from the water, and the gray mist lingering around it is its poisonous breath. What is this? The invisible force tightened the captain's heart, and he took a few steps back. The next moment, his pupils suddenly tightened. A body made of white bones stood on the bow of the ship, wearing a tattered captain's 3-cornered hat, with tudits of phosphorus fire floating in the black eye sockets. As far as the eye can see, more and more bones appear, and the crackling sound is accompanied by the sound of seawater, which is creepy. When the captain was dazed, a pleasant chirping sounded, and on the dark sea, black dorsal fins cut through the water, cruising back and forth around the ship. Killer whales, someone among the sailors exclaimed. What was even more unfortunate was that, judging from the number of dorsal fins exposed above the water, they encountered a pod of at least 30 killer whales. At this point, no matter how arrogant the captain is, he has to admit that he really made an extremely wrong decision this time. This place is a veritable devil's restricted area. If he could escape back, he would definitely not again. That old sailor. The captain murmured, suddenly raising his voice, almost shouting, "Bring him here! Bring him here! He must know how to get out." The men hurriedly went to find the old sailor who was locked in the cabin, but found that out of extreme fear, he had stabbed his own throat with a piece of discarded iron in the cabin. Blood was scattered all over the floor, but there was a strange, relieved smile on his face. People who have not experienced the shipwreck more than 10 years ago will not understand that when the shadow of fear shrouds everything, death is the best relief. More than 10 years ago, when the old sailor was still in his prime, he witnessed more than 200 people being killed in front of his eyes. He was lucky enough to escape just because the controller here wanted him to spread the news. Gray sea fog floats in the vision shrouded by death. A broken flag symbolizes the undefeated legend of the previous era. The soul fire of the undead slowly sways. The bone hand is raised and lowered, and the magic energy cannon emits a green ray of death. Screams spread, and the ship was instantly melted in half by the beam. A sailor looked down at his missing arm. The wound on his shoulder seemed to have been burned by fire. There was no blood, but he collapsed on the spot. Aha! Everyone was shouting. Everyone was running around in confusion. Some people fell into the sea and were swept into the eddies of the deep sea by killer whales. When they resurfaced, they became silent corpses. The captain stood in a daze on the deck. He felt his body tilting at an ominous angle. When he could no longer stand, his hands hurriedly scratched in the air, but found nothing. The water here was so cold that it froze all the blood in his body almost immediately. It seems that there is golden light hidden in the seawater, flickering. But he couldn't see clearly. Arthur sealed the iron box in an air bubble. He felt that his head was still aching. I didn't plan to strike so hard, but this group of people actually engaged in the evil act of killing people and dumping corpses in his waters. The most important thing is, they also succeeded in hitting him. It was simply a big failure in his life. Thinking bitterly, Arthur's attack was of course a bit harsh. He was no longer going to tolerate these humans. The ghost ship cleared the battlefield so clean that not even a single plank of wood was left on the sea. The skeletons carried the wreckage of the ship and repaired their own ships. The captain, wearing a three-cornered hat, came to Arthur with a clatter and reported the battle situation to him. "Thank you for your hard work." Arthur nodded. "In the future, if there is a ship in this area, sink it directly. There is no need to leave any survivors to go back." Captain Skeleton tilted his head. His tricorn hat fell off, and he hurriedly picked it up. "What's the reason?" "The magic energy cannon has now entered the 6th stage of test firing. Before it is completely successful, I don't want to be disturbed by the outside world, let alone the leakage of this information." A little dark color settled in the crystal light purple pupils, and Arthur murmured almost inaudibly, "After all, this is a real world."